Hello, Professor. This is Daniel Goodrum with another video for my final project. Uh, this video is where I got a little bit, I guess, I don't know if you'd say creative, um, but this is kind of where everything is not as clear cut as it has been in my other videos. Um, so this is going to be going over the player manager, the player class, and the controllers. Um, So for this one I have a player manager, which is a singleton, and this controls another singleton that is a player factory, and so that's going to create a player who is either player 1, player 2, or the attractor player. So here this keeps pointers to all the players. We have one for the current player, which is where everything accesses the current player grid, and all that kind of stuff. Um, Player 1, player 2, and then the attractor mode. The current game mode, I have an enum up here that so you can check what player type is active. Um, and so on initiation, this just sets the number of players to 0 and initializes the HUD manager. This doesn't need to be here. That was just for testing. Um, and then I have add player 1, add player 2. The player 2 I didn't really mess around with too much. And then the attractor mode. What this does is it creates a player from the player factory. We'll go look at that in a second. And then sets the input controller. So this one gets the AI controller up here. The player manager gets the keyboard controller. Initializes the HUD manager. Sets current sound mode to either silent mode here or live sound. Sets the current game mode. So since this starts the attractor mode, I'll go over that in a little bit in another video. But since the attractor mode is the first one to start, it sets the current play mode. This nulls out both of the pointers to player 1 and player 2, and then this kill all sound, that makes sure that I don't think it's working correctly, but it's supposed to kill all extra sounds left over from previous. So like when player 1 uh, ends and goes back to attractor mode, it's supposed to kill all sounds. It wasn't working correctly. Um, Standard stuff. Get current grid, get current player, change player. This isn't working as it should, and I'll go into that later when I go over the game manager. Um, this just returns player 1 and player 2 pointers, kind of don't really use them. This just checks the current player type. Um, the start game, I'll go over that again later. That's controlled by the uh, game manager, and that is what's used to transition from the attractor mode to the new current player, or to player 1. Player 2 should look something like that, but once again, I don't have player 2 implemented. Um, Destroy current player, clears all the active centipede bodies. I need to include clears all the other critters. I didn't get that implemented. It removes the current controller, and then these help destroy functions go and destroy the player's ship and grid, and by destroying the ship it just recycles it, and then the grid it goes and actually destroys it, because I don't have my grid recycled. And then it sets current player to null. I don't think I call this destroy current player, but maybe once or twice. it's good for a transition just to make sure everything is cleaned up between going from a tractor to player one and vice versa. Um, and then these pause and unpause controls, I use those to set a flag on my input controller. I'll go over in a second to like when you die and it's waiting, or you go from a tractor and a tractor death. The main reason I put it is I had a tractor death and it was still shooting the bullet even though the ship wasn't there. So I put these in. These set a flag on the input controller to pause whatever mode it is. So here I'll go. Um, if I go to this, it goes to here in the input manager, which goes to the current controller and it pauses or unpauses the current controller. My input manager, when it launches, it's a singleton and it creates an attractor controller and a keyboard controller. Both of them are stored here, and then depending on the game mode, it can request a keyboard controller, which gives it this, or an AI controller, which gives it the AI controller, and we'll go over those in a second. And then the clear inputs. I don't use that anymore. I was deleting it and then making new ones, but since then I've changed it. That's why I added the pause and unpause. Um, so then the input controller class is the base class. So this has all of the input modes. So this connects to the current player through the player manager and increases, moves it forward, moves it back, and then it also has the pause and unpause, and then the attractor controller uses a state machine to adjust the current uh, ship position, all that kind of good stuff. And um, the keyboard controller just calls back to the input controller and then has the input controller do it through these function calls. Um, the attractor controller, I decided to update the ship directly because deciding if W would have been pressed or back would have been pressed would have been a pain. So I just went with this calling the player manager, getting the current player, and updating it that way. Other than that, that's my player manager and attractor mode or attractor controllers. Those are the control components for the game modes uh, that we viewed earlier in video one. Um, for the game modes, I didn't get the my HUD is somewhat implemented. I have my flyweight pattern um, implemented here. I tried to do a glyph factory, I couldn't get it working, so I have it excluded from this. And my HUD manager, I have problems with my my current player update works, but um, my lives isn't updating. This call right here isn't. It'll draw the first two lives, but it won't draw. It won't update it to when one dies. So I'm not sure how to go about fixing that. This was one of the later things that I implemented. Um, I will be back with another video shortly where I will cover um, some more of the functionality of this program. Alright, thank you.